Lost it. Oh God. This is actually not bad. We have a good variety of trails in Middle Tennessee. Everything from rough cut XC and slow tech to flow trails and jump lines. We do, however, lack some elevation, and with that, some steep gradient and chunk. Our soil also doesn't handle moisture all that well, and so I don't really ride in the wet very often, actually ever. I try to stay away from it to help protect the trails. A couple months ago, I signed up for the Gonuts Enduro at the Trials Training Center in Sequatchie, Tennessee. That is fast and chunky. I went to the pre-ride on the Saturday before the race. I was way out of my element. It was steep, it was chunky, and it was very wet and sloppy. I just could not get grip. I was not used to riding in the wet over the rocks and the roots, and I just could not get the technique down. I also was not able to pre-ride two of the stages, one of them being stage 5, which at the end of it had a massive rock garden with multiple drops, multiple different lines. That night I just couldn't sleep and ultimately decided to bail on the race. I've been beating myself up over it. It just kind of felt like I let myself down. Yeah, let's hit it.
Just sort my goggles out for tomorrow. This one's, I'm getting sprayed in the eye.
Oh, are you? I don't think I'm going fast enough for that.
Luckily, Gonuts had my back. They changed one of their venues to the Sequatchie Cove farm, which is essentially just the other side of the mountain to Trials Training Center. So I took this as a chance to redemption. And of course, the weather had to show up.
Oh man, this is the climb trail. Slick, snotty. Hopefully it dries out a little bit by tomorrow.
I wish you were just throwing each other like, hey guys, I have to do this.
This place was wild. The climb alone, you couldn't climb. It was a hike-a-bike. We should have listened to the dog. He warned us.
Oh, really?
I hate tech. All right.
You're not going to enjoy this at all.
We ready?
Sure enough, the pre-ride started on a not so good note. I came in hot, just not really paying attention, and ate it.
Good.
Professional dismount.
I've never worked. Yeah.
And after that, I just couldn't get out of my head.
Oh. A lot of freaking sharp rocks to land my face on.
It's something that I struggle with anyways, and riding in these conditions and terrain that I'm not used to did not help at all.
You got it.
I am pretty proud of that track stand though.
Ha!
That's it. Way to go, bro. You got it.
The rest of my pre-ride went okay. The terrain is definitely very steep, some fast sections. The conditions are what made it the hardest. It was just very thick, sloppy. It's just not something that I expose myself to very often.
Made it to race day at Sequatchie Cove. Survived the pre-ride. We're just gonna try to make it down to the bottom of the mountain. I'm gonna be walking a lot. It's not gonna be pretty.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin.
Stage 1 started off with this wild rock garden. I just got off the bike. I didn't even chance it. It was covered in mud. It was steep, and the camera just does not do this justice. The rest of stage 1 went okay. I was actually riding this stage blind. I only got to pre-ride stage 2, 3, and some of 4.
What the frick?
So everything was new to me. I had no idea what was going on.
Bless it.
And it was just incredibly slippery everywhere. The mud had this really thick top layer over hard packed slick clay. There was actually a couple spots where I had to get off my bike and pick the mud out of my swing arm to get the wheel rolling again. Stage 2 I actually kind of liked during the pre-ride, but during the race it was a whole different ball game. I came up to this rock roll here, which I nailed on pre-ride, and it sketched me out. It had mud covered all over it.
It's slicker than yesterday.
A lot of awkward rock gardens on stage 2, so there was unfortunately a lot of walking going on.
Bless it.
Over the course of the race and the weekend, something that I really had to work on was my braking control. I did really get better control of my brakes. I was able to modulate my front brake a lot more.
Oh my God, my back hurts. Ooh, what's on him?
It's like a damn fruit loop. Looks like a fruit loop too.
Well, God bless, man.
And I got a lot more comfortable with letting my back end kind of slide out and kind of go where it needed to go to get over the roots and the rocks without kind of tensing up, freaking out, and grabbing a handful of brake and then just losing all control anyways. I tend to feel like when I'm going over, especially technical terrain, I tend to feel like I need to muscle the bike through that. Everywhere that I think the bike needs to go, that's where it needs to go. And as soon as it steps out, then I've lost all control and it's all going downhill from there. But over this weekend, I came to realize that that is not the case, that you kind of got to let the bike step out a little bit to be able to get over everything. And stage 3 actually felt really good. Of the other stages, this one I felt like I was riding the loosest and I stayed on the pedals the most. By stage 4, I was absolutely exhausted. The climbs to the top were about an hour and a half each. If you were hike-a-bike, you couldn't pedal up it because it was just too muddy and too steep. At this point, I was just ready to get down to the bottom and finish the race.
I almost tripped and fell on my face just then.
Stage 4 was also riding blind. I had no idea how long the stage was, no idea what part of the stage I was on, how close I was to the end, and I was just mentally and physically exhausted. I got down to the bottom and I could see that finish, and I remember looking up at that from the beginning and oh, that's not that thing. But I came up to this and it was just a sloppy quagmire. And I got it. The relief from achieving something that you once thought was impossible for yourself is unlike any other. And isn't that why we ride mountain bikes? The progression, the thrill of it, and the camaraderie that we share with others that have went through the progression with us and shared in the same grueling experience. And that is what makes mountain biking so great.
You good, man? You good?
This part sucks.
Yeah,